Hair, are we talking about hair?
No, I think that we're going to be
we're on the air there, aren't we?
talking about football. Anyway, good morning, everyone. I'm Willow Bay.
And I'm Bill Ritter. Welcome to GMA Sunday. Did you see those football helmets in the first half?
Yes, we did.
I know who's going to be on this week. Robin Roberts, you're going to be impressed with me. Ready?
Okay.
Here are the games, 2 games today.
I'm impressed so far.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, here we go. Pittsburgh Steelers versus Denver Broncos. The San Francisco 49ers versus the Green Bay Packers later.
Great. Do you know which one is the NFC and which one's the AFC?
The Green Bay Packers versus the San Francisco 49ers. That's the NFC.
Very good.
The other one, I can't remember, as the AFC.
That's right. We'll talk more about that later.
And then you also really know the big news this morning is the U.S. Olympic team has been selected.
Figure
Might
skating.
be the strongest ever.
The 3 that are going, Michelle Kwan, Nicole Bobeck, and Tara Lipinski, the 3 have won the last 4 national championships, so that's a very strong team. But I'm a little bit exhausted because when you're watching last night in Philadelphia, a lot is on the line. I watched like this. I mean, when it comes to like the jumps and that, you're so anxious, but it was exceptional skating.
A lot of people watched, and who would have thought 4 years ago that figure skating would be such a popular televised sport after the Tonya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan thing?
It is extremely popular, and you have to go back to that, and you think that really brought it to where it is right now. It's a little bit scary. So that's a silver lining over such an ugly incident.
And you're going to fill us in on all the details.
All of it.
Coming up
All of
later.
it.
All right, now we're going to go
Head out to Las Vegas, right?
Las Vegas. Last week we sent George Chickarone to the Star Trek convention in Las Vegas. I think we kept him there all week, and now he's at the Consumer Electronics. He lives there.
Yep, I know.
Oh, well, no wonder it's easy for him. And we gambled in and sent him to Las Vegas again. The buzz all week, George, about digital televisions and satellites, but beyond all the hype, you found a whole nother world of interesting technology.
That's right. I still have to get out of bed at 3 o'clock, so it's not so great here all the time. Actually, it's amazing because when this show began back in 1967, there were maybe only 3 to 5 new items, maybe like an 8-track tape or 2, but that's changed quite a bit with advancing technology. 1,500 companies here, literally hundreds and hundreds of new inventions. But not all of these inventors of these companies kind of split the atom when they came up with these ideas, and those are the items that we kind of are going to be concentrating on, including this. Looks like an innocent hairbrush, but actually, well, I'll save that for later.
Yes,
I'll tell you
don't
what
give it
this
away,
thing
George.
does.
All right, we'll get to you a little later in the show in Las Vegas.
Also, we're going to be talking about ski season. This has been a deadly ski season, not just because of the deaths of Michael Kennedy and Sonny Bono, but actually more than a dozen people have been killed just this month because of avalanches. And Lori Hibbert is going to tell us about an innovative program to actually save people who have been buried by avalanches.
Yes, actually, because of El Nino, they're expecting this to be one of the worst avalanche seasons in Colorado, and they're bracing themselves by preparing. And the way they prepare and the way they train, I don't want to give it away, but they have a very innovative rescue program at Copper Mountain.
Which is the avalanche capital of the United States, and you braved the elements and went there, and you'll be along in a few minutes.
I went there, and I actually saw an avalanche happen while I was there.
You did.
Great. All right, we'll see you a little later in the show. All that coming up, but first we're going to get caught up on the morning's news, and we'll begin with Willow.
We begin this morning in eastern Canada, where temperatures are dropping again, making life even more miserable for the millions of people caught in this week's ice storm. Power is still out in many regions, and so are the phone lines. It's being called the worst natural disaster ever to hit Canada. With more on the recovery effort, here is Rosemary Thompson from Canada's CTV.
Falling ice pierced the roof of the Olympic Stadium, so the Rolling Stones concert was cancelled. And center ice will be empty. The Canadians' hockey game was postponed.
There's nothing to do with the building. It's the security of the fans around the building.
But Montrealers are making the best of it.
There's going to be a lot of divorces and a lot of babies, I think. Power is slowly beginning to return to the island of Montreal. There are lights in some skyscrapers, but the buildings themselves are becoming a hazard. Firefighters chipped away at a frozen city. Sightseeing tourists donned helmets. We're living history, this man from Paris says. With heavy ice, city crews shook the Jacques-Cartier Bridge, fearing the falling ice would kill motorists. This Montreal landmark remains closed. The hydro distribution network is crippled, especially on Montreal's South Shore. Rebuilding all this twisted metal will take time and patience.
That was Rosemary Thompson of Canada's CTV.
You know, that same weather system swept through northern New England as well. Hundreds of thousands of homes in the region are without power this morning. And now that the temperatures are starting to rise slightly, the ice covering trees and power lines is starting to melt and fall. And that's creating yet another hazard. ABC's Bob Woodruff is in Gray, Maine, just outside of Portland. Bob, good morning.
Good morning, Bill, to you. That is still very much of a hazard out here, but as you can see, this landscape is still very frozen this morning. These trees are still very much covered with ice. It got down to 5 degrees last night. It's not expected to be above 32 degrees today, and there are still thousands of people in shelters throughout Maine today. In fact, 2 people died yesterday from inhaling fumes, carbon monoxide from the power generators that are heating their homes. And there are still more than 500,000 people without power in the state. The power company says they have 1,000 people, workers out on the road now, trying to restore that power, but it could take throughout the week, possibly into the weekend, to get that back. For Mainers here, this is the worst they have ever seen. This is the biggest power outage ever. It's even bigger than Hurricane Gloria, which swept through here in 1986, and it is still far from over. Bill?
All right, Bob Woodruff reporting from Gray, Maine this morning. Thanks a lot for that update.
And now from Great Britain, another good reason to floss. It may keep you from getting a heart attack. British dentists say they have found a link between gum disease and heart disease. Here's the BBC's Fergus Walsh.
Dentists at Newcastle University reviewed several studies which strongly suggest that gum disease caused by bacterial plaque could have a harmful effect on the heart.
If plaque is left on the teeth, it will cause the gums to become inflamed. This inflammation may cause reactions elsewhere in the body.
It's important that you floss your teeth every night before you brush them.
Men in their 40s are most at risk from the effects of gum disease on the heart. It's thought very advanced gum infections could increase a patient's risk of heart disease by 50%. Dentists say giving up smoking is one of the most important ways of reducing the risk of both gum and heart disease. We all know that regular brushing and checkups at the dentist will help us keep our teeth and gums healthy. But now dentists can add that it may help us live longer as well. Fergus Walsh, BBC News, in the dentist's chair.
Talk about reporter involvement, huh? Did you see him go like that?
Wow.
Right up there.
You should be paying attention. Men in their 40s are at the greatest risk.
I floss twice a day.
Oh, goodness.
I do.
Bill, there's a little bigger.
Okay, I'll get it later. Thank you, Robin. Tell me later, though. Okay. Coming up next, what's it like to be buried alive under at least 3 feet of snow, waiting for someone to find you?
We'll show you when we go underground at an avalanche rescue school. Stay with us.
I got it.
In the Sunday forecast, mostly dry along the East Coast. Rain and showers will cover the southern and central Mississippi Valley and the central West Coast. The northern plains, much of the Rockies, and the southern part of the Pacific Northwest will see some snow. As for temperatures, bitterly cold across the plains, highs there in the minus teens to the 20s. The Great Lakes will see highs only in the teens to 20s. Highs will be mostly in the 20s and 30s in the Northeast and Pacific Northwest. And in the Southwest, highs will range from the 40s to the 60s. For more on your local weather forecast, check out abcnews.com on the World Wide Web or on America Online. And GMA Sunday will be right back after this.
Good Morning America Sunday's weather report is brought to you by Mrs. Butterworth.
In the last week, avalanches in Idaho, western Montana, and British Columbia killed at least 13 people. In fact, avalanches are a deadly risk for anyone who prefers back trails to crowded ski slopes. But if you are caught in one, what are your chances of being rescued? And how do rescuers find someone under so much snow? Lori Hibbard went to the slopes of Colorado to find out.
And you know, Colorado is the avalanche capital of North America, and more people die in avalanches in Colorado than any other place, which means, of course, ski patrollers have to be ready for an emergency at a moment's notice. Now, to find victims, rescuers at Copper Mountain go to extraordinary lengths to make sure they're prepared, including enlisting the help of man's best friend and some very brave humans who are willing to be buried alive.
Avalanche. Imagine you're skiing and thousands of pounds of snow are barreling down the mountain towards you. If it buries you, you can't move and oxygen is in short supply. Believe it or not, a dog may be your best chance for survival. An avalanche rescue dog, like the ones Patty Burnett started training nearly 12 years ago.
We did that because we had lost a ski patroller in an avalanche accident. We found him quickly, but we realized that had it been a member of the public who was buried, probably the best hope for finding somebody without a transceiver would have been an avalanche dog, and we had none at that time.
Now Copper Mountain has 5 rescue dogs who work side by side with ski patrollers. The dogs are drilled weekly to prepare them for the stress of a rescue. They have to get used to the noise and movement of a helicopter ride, a ride that is sometimes the only way to reach avalanches quickly enough to save lives.
They're very successful at finding people in avalanches. We found one person alive, but unfortunately most of the people that we find are dead because by the time we get there, time has run out.
Every second counts in an avalanche rescue, and training helps a dog like Sandy save precious minutes.
We start the dogs when they're just little puppies, 2 months old. We do runaway games, and what we would do is we'd start holding the dog right here and run into the wind and jump into a hole in the snow.
But the real test is finding someone who's buried alive. That's where volunteers like Chris Lebsock come in.
I want you to be on your side.
Okay.
Okay, not on your back.
They need a different volunteer every week.
We want people that they've never smelled before. And each person has a different scent. So we want them to find even the people that they've never met before, because that will be the case in a real avalanche. Remember, if you start getting claustrophobic at all, you let me know.
Chris's home for the next half hour is a narrow, deep hole in the side of the mountain.
Okay, we're going to start putting blocks across the entrance now.
As the entrance is blocked, Chris's world gets darker and darker. With the final shovels of snow, all goes black. And from the surface, Chris's hole is undetectable. Then Sandy is brought to the site. Sandy makes a few false starts.
What do you got, Sandy? Huh? What do you got?
But he quickly finds his mark and starts digging.
Good boy, Sandy. Good boy.
With help from his trainer, Sandy finally reaches Chris.
Good boy, Sandy. Good boy. Good boy.
Chris was buried in the snow for about half an hour, but he knew the dog was looking for him, and even if he had panicked, he had radio contact. Real avalanche victims aren't that lucky. If Chris had tried to dig himself out, he never would have been able to. The snow in an avalanche is very dense, and it's like cement. You saw how hard the snow was around his cave? It's even more dense than that.
At first, I was kind of scared because it was a tight space, and when the dog was on top, I didn't know if they knew where to dig, so I thought that they might dig right where I was, and it'd cave in on me, and then it'd be a real rescue.
What do you tell the average skier about avoiding avalanches? You'd want to tell them to stay within the ski area boundary. You know, not only is it attractive when you look at those untracked hills that are beyond the ski area boundaries, but there also is a huge danger there.
And Sandy, or one of the other dogs, might not be there to rescue you.
So interesting that they recreate all of that. Now, you said you saw
an avalanche. Yeah, what happened was while Chris was being buried, we were really on a sort of a remote part of the mountain, and off in the distance they were setting off bombs, and they were creating avalanches sort of as preventative medicine, because they're having a heck of a year because of El Nino. They haven't had a lot of snow at the very beginning of the season, but they're expecting a lot. So what they think is going to happen is they don't have a very solid base to handle the plethora of snow that they think is going to come, so it's all going to come trashing down.
And why is Colorado the avalanche capital?
Because their snowfall is so erratic, and sometimes they don't have, as I said, the impacted base that can hold heavier snow that comes on top.
Now, are there steps that you can take if you are, heaven forbid, caught in an avalanche?
Well, Patty Burnett told me that what you should do, if by chance you're skiing and you see it coming behind you, the first thing to do is try to get rid of your equipment, because it will weigh you down when the snow hits.
And it's tons of snow.
This is tons of snow. I mean, your chances are not that great. But she said if you start swimming, and she said you're really swimming for your life, you're trying to stay on surface above the snow so it doesn't bury you. If by chance you do get buried, she said as you're coming to a stop, punch your arm up above the snow so you can try to at least get a lock on where up is. Because once the snow settles, it's like cement, and you honestly can't move. And she said also at the same time you're punching up, create an air pocket with your hand so that you can try to breathe a little bit, because you have very little air in there once you're stuck.
What a scary and fascinating
story. It's a terrifying thing, really. The best advice is, of course, don't ski in the out of bounds areas. Stay on the trails. Yeah, have a good time.
Thank you, Lori. Well, coming up next, it slices, it dices, it cleans up after the kids. A whole bunch of stuff that George Chickerone uncovered at the Winter Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas.
Good Morning America Sunday is brought to you by MCI.
Viva Las Vegas! Viva Las Vegas!
When you hear the name Thomas Edison, you probably think of his most famous invention, the light bulb. But there are a lot of things we use every day that nobody ever gets credit for. Like the clapper, remember that? Who invented that? We have one of these actually here. What? Clap on, clap off. All right, how about clap on? Look at that, how it works. In fact, our George Chickerone we sent to Las Vegas to find a lot of these nameless, faceless inventions on display in Las Vegas this week at the Winter Consumer Electronics Show. George, I don't know if you found the clapper. We brought, by the way, I should tell you, we are in the Den monitor here with our huge high-tech invention, this beautiful projector monitor here, which I'm staring at. You can't see me, but I can see you very well.
I'm sorry I'm missing all this.
Yes. What did you find out there?
Well, actually, as you know, today will mark the 4th day of the Consumer Electronics Show. And, you know, if you've been watching the news over the last 4 days, you've probably been bombarded with all of the digital TVs and all that stuff that is just taking over the show. But with all due respect, we wanted to show you some of the lower tech items that are being shelved out this year. And, well, take a look and you'll see for yourself.
What are these people watching? Would you believe television? Or at least the way they're being sold here at the Consumer Electronics Show. These high-definition digital televisions are all the rage. It seems TVs are getting bigger and at the same time smaller. But after all, it's just television.
But we've come here to find the true innovations, those new and unique items that are designed to make this world a better place. Well, that may be stretching it a bit.
Oh, wow. This is called the Auto Taser.
50,000 volts of auto security.
It looks like those other devices. It attaches to your steering wheel, but if someone activates it by tampering, it fights back in a way that would make Charles Bronson proud.
It absolutely punishes a thief. Electricity speaks every language.
So when do you expect the first round of lawsuits for this?
No, we don't expect any lawsuits. This is just like an electric fence. It's perfectly safe, but you're not going to be able to touch it.
Would you do this to your surveillance camera? Well, you could if yours was a dummy cam. It looks the part, blinking red light and all, but as they say here in Vegas, this camera... You bluff. Yes, you can intimidate your employees or even make washroom visitors a bit nervous, all for about $60.
It gives the impression that you have a surveillance camera just with a fraction of the cost.
And how about this brush that will clean your hair electronically as you use it?
Correct.
The Ionic Hair Wand dispenses electronic cleansing ions. It's quite new and will be selling for about $40.
It removes dander, dandruff, bacteria, and say smoke.
Can I borrow this for a few minutes?
Be my guest.
Kind of makes it a little bit fluffy, you know, feel real light.
So you think it works?
Yeah.
And Elvis doesn't lie, but others do. That's why this Truth Seeker is expected to be a big seller this year. It detects changes in the human voice, and when it goes into the red, someone's fibbing, for instance.
No, men never come on to me. Not at all. They're very professional.
This won't hurt you. It's good for you. Smoke it.
So you really enjoyed all those years on 8 is Enough?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the best years of my life, really. Yeah.
There were new products that were downright goofy, and some that makes opening your garage door a galactic experience.
If you like Star Trek, you like this product. I love it. But I love the toys, and that's what they are. They're toys.
I truly feel this hairbrush is real.
And, you know, as they say, when in Rome, you do as the Romans do. That's why Elvis was in the piece. And straight from Elvis's hair to you is the hairbrush. Bill, I don't know, I got to bring this back with me. Actually, I should give this back to Elvis. But when you turn it on and you sniff it, it's kind of there's a weird aroma coming from it. Dating myself, it's kind of like the news people know what I'm talking about, like the old weather offices when they would get those maps in, that smell that would come about.
Yeah. Yeah, my suggestion, George, is just don't smell it then, that's all. What,
Well, yeah.
How expensive are these things, George?
This is, I believe this goes for about $60 or so, $49, I believe. I understand you have some items there that we sent you?
Yes, you did, George, and I can't tell you how happy I am. This is a, no, it is, it's kind of neat. This is, I was corrected earlier. I called this an atomic watch, but it's not an atomic watch, right? What is this?
Actually, I thought it was an atomic watch.
No, it's not atomic powered, though.
No, what they use, it comes at perfect time from the atomic clock. But I think they do call it the atomic watch. It's from the atomic clock, which I believe is in Washington, D.C., and that's the standard of the United States. And it sends out, in Washington, it sends out a radio beam, and it automatically sets the clock for daylight savings time. You don't have to worry about a thing.
Actually, it was from Colorado, I'm told. But Willow, see?
Oh, you're right.
Willow told me that it couldn't be atomic, but it is atomic, right?
Well,
see?
that's what they're calling it anyway. That's
Come here,
right.
Willow.
It is Colorado.
I want to bring Willow in because she's been giving me a hard time all morning, George. I've been playing with this toy.
I don't get the fascination with any of this stuff.
What is this? This is a, you can't see the story.
That's half the fun.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to understand it all. It's actually the guy who showed me that laser. I said, "What do you use it for?" He says, "Well, to be perfectly honest, there is no use for it. You just basically point it out. A lot of guys pointed out hotel windows, and it kills a lot of time that way by driving people in the street. A little batty."
You're making Willow's point here.
I know. Did you find anything that maybe you'd want to actually bring home and use?
Well, I don't have any children, but they're pushing something that's your first keyboard. It runs for about $80, and it's a keyboard for kids, and it's as they say, it's peanut butter proof. So for parents, if they want to start their kids on a technological spin very early, that's the gadget you probably want to get.
Okay, George, we're beaming you right now. We're going to get out of here. The computer's going to take us off the air. Thanks a lot, George Chickerman from Las Vegas. We will be right back. Do you like this? See?
Oh yeah, great.
It's a boy toy, is what it is.
Yeah. Well, since last fall, we have been following the story of a rather peculiar crime wave in Toledo, Ohio. Authorities were baffled by a string of rather odd robberies. Police are wondering about the priorities of some bank robbers in Toledo, Ohio. 3 banks have been broken into over the last 3 weeks. The only thing the criminals have touched is the gumball machines. This update of a story we reported last Sunday. There was another gumball machine robbery in Toledo, Ohio last night. Thieves threw a brick through a window at an auto parts store to get the goodies.
You have been all over that story.
We were on top of it.
You are a gumball expert. A couple of weeks later, after 19 gumball machines had been stolen, police finally made an arrest in the case. They caught 42-year-old Ralph Ensley with his pocket full of gumballs and quarters. Then they followed a trail of gumballs that led to a trash dumpster where they found a smashed gumball machine, the evidence.
Now, at that point, Toledo police figured they had put a stop to the gumball capers, but this week there were 3 more cases. Holy Toledo, what's going on? Joining us this morning to bring us the latest is Sarah Bloomquist of WTVG in Toledo. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Willow.
As if Toledo doesn't have enough problems, Sarah. Now you've got gumball crime breakout. What's going on there?
That's right. Well, they're definitely making a comeback. In fact, we're calling this thief the copycat gumball bandit. So far this week, as you said, 3 gumball machines have been stolen from 2 locations right here in the city of Toledo. And actually, there was another incident this week. Police believe this one's tied in. The gumball bandit, though, had a little bit more of an appetite. It seems he took an entire candy machine that had not only gumballs, but chocolate and toys in it as well.
They're checking on dentist's office.
Is there more gumball machines in Toledo than in other places? There must be. Saw a gumball machine.
Actually, one of these stores had 2 gumball machines, and they took both of those and took off with them. Police have found both of the gumball machines, though, at least 2 of them. One they found right here in Toledo. Another of the gumball machines they found across the border in Michigan. So they're dumping the gumball machines.
I bet you we're the only national show, Sarah, that's keeping track of what's happening in your community with this very important
That's probably
crime
true.
story.
Some people would say we probably want to be known for different things, but that's okay.
Serious crime down around the country, the FBI says.
But, gotta hang on to your
That's
gumball
right.
machines. Thanks, Sarah.
Sure.
All right, we'll be right back after this with more Crime Watch. More GMA Sunday. Cleared up that caper.
Yeah, I feel much better now.
Yep, America's Most Wanted. Forget about it. Right here, GMA Sunday, Crime Watch, the gumball caper. Welcome back. It's that time of the morning when we're going to bring you a little headline in the news. The big story this morning is the bad weather in Canada and in New England. A major ice storm has left much of the region without power and without phone service. The cold forced thousands of Canadians from their homes and into shelters overnight. And the worst is still not over. ABC's Bill Redeker is in Montreal.
Canada's worst ice storm is now history, but it has left behind a legacy of damage. Despite the efforts of more than 6,000 Army troops, 1 million homes remain without power. putting a strain on city shelters that are overwhelmed with urban refugees.
No electricity, and it's very cold at home. We can do nothing.
Although warmer temperatures here have helped thaw out Montreal and ice has come crashing down nearly everywhere, public utilities here are still a mess.
The power outages have disrupted water filtration facilities. 3 million residents here have been forced to boil their drinking water.
I mean, there's nothing we can do about it. At least they're announcing to us, be careful.
Now, the arduous task of cleaning up and trying to restore life to this paralyzed city. Last night, a hopeful sign, power was restored to the heart of the downtown business district. Bill Redeker, ABC News, Montreal.
Some meteorologists believe El Nino is responsible for the deadly ice storms and for the unseasonably balmy weather in other parts of the East Coast. Joe Friday, Director of Research at NOAA, will be joining Sam Donaldson later this morning. And Sam joins us now from Washington. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning, Willow. You're talking about gumballs. Just think of me as gumshoe.
All right, Sam. Well, on that note, is there any sort of consensus that El Nino is in fact responsible for these odd weather patterns?
A lot of meteorologists, Joe Friday among them, I suppose, but does believe that El Nino has affected our weather all across this hemisphere and into the Atlantic. Now, whether this particular ice storm is a direct feature of the El Nino phenomenon, I don't know. We'll be asking him about that.
Now, NOAA, I understand, has a new plane that they're going to use to track El Nino. How does that work?
Well, you track El Nino, I suppose, by looking at the various depths of the temperature. It's a phenomenon, as you know, in the Pacific Ocean. It waxes and wanes somewhat. It gets a little cooler, but it's a very hot area. And by looking with infrared at the temperatures, they hope to be able to predict precisely how large the phenomenon will be. But I'm out of my depth here. We're going to have to ask Joe about that.
Well, you know, we did hear a report this morning, Sam, that 1998 was expected to be hotter than usual in Washington, D.C.
Because of you, Sam. Because of you, Sam.
No.
Heading back to the White House.
Let me tell you, I'm going back to the future. I mean, I once did the White House beat, and I don't know. I'm going to try to, creep in tomorrow morning and see if I can still find the facilities there. I know all of my competitors, the bright young men and women who are already on that beat and don't want to make a little room for me, will welcome me.
Oh, sure, Sam. They're bringing out the croissants and bagels right away.
We'll see. A lot of people say, well, here comes General Jubilation T. Cornpone. But I guess I'll scratch around and find a story now and then.
Well, General, we have dusted off the ABC News archives with our crack research team and pulled up a tape of you from January 2nd, 1980. President was Jimmy Carter. The Soviet Union, the old Soviet Union, had just invaded Afghanistan. You were at the White House on this breaking story. Let's take a look.
Officials here are well aware that the president's own credibility is squarely on the line. Having said he'll do more than just send a stiff note of protest, he must take action that actually hurts Moscow. That means a step back from détente, a step back toward the Cold War.
A step back towards the Cold War. Sam.
My son, there he was. Ronald Reagan had a great line. He said, I used to look at all those old movies and I looked at a son that I never had.
That's funny.
So Sam, are you excited?
I am excited, I must tell you. I mean, I may be foolish. I woke up in the middle of the night. This is the truth. And I looked up and I said, what have I done? What in the name of goodness have I done? But I'm excited because you got to keep moving. I mean, you cannot just stand still. I think there's still life in this Clinton administration, and I want to cover it. We have, for instance, on This Week, our program today with Cokie and George Will, Franklin Raines, the budget director. Now, the president says, watch out for that bubble of surplus. And yet the president has already announced initiatives to spend more money. So we'll be talking to Franklin Raines. Steve Forbes, the publisher, of course, very conservative, wants the flat tax. And does the name Oliver North mean anything to you?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Colonel North will be on. He's going to New Hampshire to talk to the Christian Coalition this coming week. Yep. And what does the name New Hampshire mean in presidential politics?
Primary, perhaps, huh?
Perhaps candidate North.
Well, candidate North. We're going to ask Colonel North whether he thinks he can run a credible campaign for the presidency.
Sam, you mentioned Cokie. We should also say Cokie Roberts is starting back at the congressional beat tomorrow as well.
Well, see, there's less emphasis there because Cokie's always there. Yeah. Cokie has done that for years and years. There is no one in this town, including most members of Congress, who know as much about Congress as Cokie Roberts. And she's going to do more from Capitol Hill. I'm going to be at the White House. Jack McQuethy, our great diplomatic correspondent, will be there. Linda Douglas. We're going to have a front four. Think of me as Mean Joe Green that is going to just roll over them. I hope.
All right, Sam, but meanwhile, you got a show ahead of you this morning, a busy show we will be watching this week with Sam and Koki later on this morning. Thanks as always.
Great.
And enjoy tomorrow.
Thanks.
Oh, I will. You've got to get up early again, just like us now. Still ahead in our next half hour, in this half hour actually, in the Middle East, some young people are finding relief on the dance floor.
Learning of the great old new art of ballroom dancing.
That's right.
A big sports weekend, the NFL, and on the ice, and Robin Roberts is here to bring us up to speed. Start with the big announcement.
The
Not
Olympic
so much
team?
of a surprise, the Olympic team.
It usually is a surprise sometimes. We're talking about the National Figure Skating Championships last night in Philadelphia, and only the national champion is assured of an Olympic berth. Then the committee will decide, but the skaters decided for themselves yesterday. Michelle Kwan, absolutely stunning in Thursday's short program, the highest score ever for an American woman. And then she followed it up last night, breathtaking, 8 perfect scores here in the long program. And she is skating with a fractured toe, and that last jump that you saw was the most painful for her toward the end of her program, and still, look at those perfect scores.
Wow.
Absolutely stunning.
And she looked luminous.
You know, she really did, because last year in Nashville, remember, she was a little disoriented and didn't have that passion, the fire. She was stumbling all over the ice, and then Tara Lipinski comes in and steals the show, and deserving of the national championship last year. But Tara Lipinski didn't quite have it, especially in Thursday's short program, an uncharacteristic fall for her, and she placed second, and Nicole Bobeck was third. But here in the short program on Thursday, you see Tara Lipinski not quite having it, but boy, she followed it up last night. I mean, she's a spunky little 15-year-old. She really came back.
That's a lot of resilience to
'cause
come back after something which for her is so traumatic because
Right.
she's so perfect.
She was in 4th place and vaulted to 2nd place, and in the interview after, you should have heard her. She was really spunky, like, you know, we'll wait for the Olympics. And I don't know who to pick as a favorite in Nagano, Michelle Kwan or Tara Lipinski. And don't forget about Nicole Bobeck. She was a 95 U.S. champion, and so we have 3 past national champions going on to represent the U.S.
Quick update on the men.
Todd Eldridge won his 5th national title. That was earlier in the week. He has been spectacular. He's had some injuries too. Earlier in the year, he separated his shoulder. He came back to win 5 national titles. He will be there. Michael Weitz will be there. So it'll be a strong skating contingent representing the U.S. in Nagano.
Okay, today.
Oh, football. I love the helmet shop when we're coming in. I mean, the NFL, isn't that great?
Bill's way on top of this.
Yes, he is. Sure he is. Oh, you're a good co-partner, I tell you what. But
run us through the games real quick.
With the NFC, I mean, that's considered the pseudo Super Bowl because the winner. That's right, because the winner of this game has gone on to win 13 consecutive Super Bowls. The Raiders, the last ones in the AFC to win, but a lot of rain in the San Francisco area. El Nino getting blamed for that too, for this torrential rain.
This is the game they're calling the blood feud, not just the championship game.
It's a really a family affair because between the two teams, the head coach of the Packers, Mike Holmgren, of course, an assistant for many years with the Niners, won 2 Super Bowl rings, very familiar with their system, and was pretty much hired by the Packers because he knew the Niners so well. Oh, by the way, Steve Mariucci was hired by the Niners because he's a former Green Bay assistant, very good friends with Brett Favre, the quarterback for the Packers. In fact, Brett saw him on TV recently and said, "You're looking a little chubby." You know, they have a good, but it's really fun to see those two, and it's a pick 'em.
Now, golf season started. Also, what, Thursday?
Thursday with the Mercedes Championships. Tiger Woods, I happened to be out in La Costa early this week. I presented him with our Wide World of Sports Athlete of the Year, and everyone's asking about the expectations after what he did in '97, so I asked him, what's up for '98? What are your expectations? I know what other people's all I got to do is ask them. They'll tell them what they expect of you.
Yeah, I know.
But what about yourself?
Just to win.
Oh, is that all?
That's it. Simple as that. Just to win.
And he's 5 shots back getting into the last round today. Well, he'll wear his red, and he loves to be in contention, so anything can happen.
Now, What's your sense of this year for him? I mean, I know he said he just wants to win,
Right.
but he has a lot on his shoulders.
A lot of expectations.
Yeah.
Friday, he was voted by his peers the PGA Player of the Year. Jack Nicklaus was there. Arnold Palmer, he was there also, and he said, you know, a lot is expected of him, not just to play great golf, but also to be the ambassador of the sport. And oh, by the way, the black community also wanting him to be at the forefront. So a lot of expectations. But
and guess what? We'll be watching him.
He just wins. He just wins.
We'll be watching him, Robin.
Okay.
Thank you. Coming up next, at the heart of the Middle East conflict, it takes two to tango, not just in diplomatic circles. Ballroom dancing in Israel, when GMA Sunday continues.
You know, in an environment where war and terrorism are a constant threat, you might think that children in the Middle East never have a chance to learn the finer things in life. But in fact, that is not the case, or at least not in one area of Israel, where ABC's Hillary Brown has found a school with a decidedly upbeat curriculum.
At the Ashdod Community Center in southern Israel, boys and girls aged 8 to 12 are doing karate. The kind of thing that kids that age normally do, right? Wrong. In the next room, there's a much bigger class of kids the same age, doing the samba, the tango, and the cha-cha-cha. Good, aren't they? The reason why is this couple, Boris and Rosanna Odikadze, who came here from the former Soviet Republic of Georgia a decade ago. They started to teach ballroom dancing with 6 students. Now they have 600. This is the rumba, a dance of love. Boris and Rosanna were ballroom dance champions in the former Soviet Union. They were part of the enormous wave of Soviet immigrants who came to Israel in the 80s. They worked at menial jobs for 2 years before opening a dancing school. Rosanna makes her own costumes. She is expecting a baby, so this dress is for one of her students. You design it yourself?
Yeah, everything. Materials and colors and model, everything.
In just a few years, Rosanna and Boris have effectively made Ashdod the ballroom dance capital of Israel. Their best students dance competitively. They include Rosa's son Thomas, a child from her first marriage. Though when he was a kid, he said he hated dancing.
3, 4, 1.
Boris and Rosa are good teachers because they treat all their students as their own children.
Stop.
Yes, they are like parents to us. If we have problems, then we can talk to them about everything, and it's really like a family.
Children learn all the dances, not just the foxtrot and the waltz, which they don't like much, but the Latin American dances and, of course, rock and roll. About 80% of these young Israelis are of Russian origin. Most of them say they'd like to dance for a living.
It's very fun and I like it.
What's your favorite dance?
Samba. Cha-cha-cha. Drive.
It's a very beautiful sport, and I think every girl and a woman like to wear that kind of dress.
Ballroom dancing has now become such a craze in Israel that there are 32 schools across the country and national championships every spring. Boris and Rosa's students always do well. This year they placed second in the junior category and second and third among the adults. Now that ballroom dancing has been accepted as an Olympic sport, their dream is to go to the Summer Games in Sydney in the year 2000. In the meantime, they'll go on dancing, making music visible. Hillary Brown, ABC News, Israel.
And whoever said we don't have rhythm? Huh? Look at that piece.
I did.
You know, you and I should try this. Maybe this is like, you know, détente.
Can I lead?
Ballroom dancing.
have to.
Ballroom dancing is actually getting very popular again. There are a couple of movies came out that made it interesting. Strictly Ballroom, I don't even remember. It was an Australian movie, very funny about the low-down, dirty, backstabbing things that go on behind the scenes in the ballroom dancing. And also Shall We Dance, a Japanese movie
Which
about
is a delightful movie.
Yeah,
And some of those same moves
businessman.
that we just saw in that piece in Shall We Dance.
Yeah.
They teach it here in Central Park.
They do, and actually I did a story on the Central
remember,
Park in
for
the
Good Morning
summertime.
America.
For Good Morning America. It was a wonderful program. It's so beautiful, and just about every community has a place where you can go and ballroom dance, and it really is fun.
In fact, I remember that story.
Sport as well, you know.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear that. In fact, the kid called it a sport.
That's exactly.
Oh,
In your piece, Tommy Lasorda, at the end of that, learned to ballroom dance.
with
didn't he?
Elizabeth Vargas,
Yes,
I
that's
remember.
right. Wow, look what you spawned.
It was me!
Do we have video of that? You always bring back all the video.
We can't get it right before the commercial, but we'll work on it for the next break. And you and I will practice dancing.
Oh, this I gotta see.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, after the show.
Way after the show.
We'll be right back.
And then you'll wake up.
We can try. Come on, here we go.
Oh, no.
Come on. You lead, though. All right.
Willow, would you like to do this?
I like that. Do that again. I should learn how to do that,
The
right?
question is, can either one of you dance for real?
No.
Good Morning America Sunday is brought to you by Vacuum Folgers.
You guys know so much about everything. I feel like Darren Stevens half the time. Really, I mean
You look
that.
like Darren.
Oh, no, I didn't mean that.
I meant the new Darren, not the old.
Oh, the new Darren. There were like several of them.
There were.
All right. Darren Stevens on Bewitched. Right over there. Right over. Child of the 90s. Oh, Darren Stevens. We have a couple program notes before we go. Where are they? Here they are. Later this morning on This Week, new title with Cokie and Sam.
Wow.
Oliver North will be there. Will he make a run for office? And tonight on World News Sunday, thousands remain without power. Many have been driven from their homes. Tonight, more on the miserable weather in the Northeast.
And here's Charlie Gibson with a preview of Good Morning America.
This week on Good Morning America, students are getting tested more than ever. Is there too much pressure and not enough learning? Plus, actors Kenneth Branagh and Denzel Washington join us on Good Morning America this week.
Also, one other note I should mention. Tomorrow night on 2020 at 9 o'clock Eastern.
Guess who?
Oh, boy.
I have a story. It's actually a very interesting story. I don't feel like Darren Stevens anymore. This is great.
Oh, please, come on, talk about yourself some more.
What about you, Bill?
There's a story. You want to hear this?
Yes.
All right, there's a story about employers spying. 2 out of 3 American companies admit they monitor their employees. In fact, I happen to find out that ABC is monitoring us right now. There are 4 cameras here, and there's one up here.
Cameras in the studio?
Beaming us to millions of people right now. Of course, we didn't know that, did we?
No, we did
not.
Of
course
but
not.
that's your debut on
It is. I'm very
2020.
excited. It's actually a fascinating story. It raises some interesting questions about privacy and.
Is primetime ready for Bill Ritter? That's the big question.
Inquiring minds want
We'll
to know.
let you guys be the
Tuesday morning.
that. Be the judge of that.
We'll be back.
Anyway.
Interesting story in the golf world. Casey Martin suing the PGA.
Right,
Explain this to us now.
He was a former teammate with Tiger Woods at Stanford. He has a disabling leg condition, and he is suing the PGA Tour under the Americans with Disabilities Act about using a golf cart because it's very difficult for him to walk. And that has
During
really...
the tournaments.
During the tournaments. And he got a court injunction so he could use a cart for 2 tournaments on the Nike Tour, and it just so happens right now at the Lakeland Classic, he is tied for the lead at 14 under par after the rain delay, or excuse me, in the 3rd round. But more importantly, the fact that he is suing the PGA Tour for a Galton cart. And I asked Tiger Woods this week, you know, you played with him at Stanford, what do you think about it? And he goes, as a friend, I would love for him to have it. As a competitor, it is an unfair advantage because all the other golfers have to walk and say it's the St. Jude Classic, Memphis, Tennessee, in the middle of the summer, and it's very hot.
Tiring.
It's very tiring. So it's really caused quite a debate.
Tiring enough to give it an advantage?
It could be. It could be.
How do you feel about it?
You know what? When I first heard about it, I was like, come on, let the guy play. I mean, it's wonderful that he's trying to play. He's an excellent golfer. He should have the right to play. Then when you start thinking about fair play, is it exactly fair? And after talking with Tiger and other golfers today last week at La Costa, I'm really torn. I'm very torn.
But doesn't he have an unfair disadvantage because of his leg, that this would almost even the score?
It is a good point, but when you think about the PGA Tour and the history and saying that it would be unfair because he has the leg condition, it's tough.
Very interesting.
On that note, we say thank you to you, and thank you to all you for joining us. Have a great week.
See you next week, everyone.
Okay, you too.
Good Morning America Sunday has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source. ABC News, now always on.